it's time for an casual Q&A. So Jen has been working in LLNL's nuclear sciences division on chemical and microscopic data analysis during group appendix 820. Previously, she completed an MS in Geology at the University of Minnesota and a BS in Geochemistry at Caltech. In terms of LLNL, Jen has developed an interest in quantitative science, data, and doing research for universal code. We also have data scientist Emilia Grzesiak. Hopefully pronouncing that correctly. I participated long enough that took me up pronounce it, but I struggle so nice. Emilia has been a data scientist here at the lab for almost 3 years, working on WiDS, which is cross-body developability projects in both the beginning of COVID. She joined after her 2020 the DSSI internship and completed her Bachelors and Masters in Biomedical Engineering from the University. In the past, her research interests include building robotic exoskeleton software and predicting flu and cold infections to insurable price data. She's passionate about mentorship and helping early career students break into data science. Okay, so Paige is a software developer in LLNL's Enterprise Application Services Division for the past 3 years. She's responsible for the integration of commercial off-the-shelf tools and software and development and enhancement of web apps and the exploration of cutting-edge technologies that she used at LLNL. She has a bachelor's in computer information systems from Cal State, Chico, and Paige is currently advancing her expertise in MS computer science at Tech. She's an avid advocate for outreach and STEM education and participates in recruitment, girls who code, and science accelerating girls engagement. And last but not least, we have Samantha Call. Samantha joined the lab as a software developer in January 2023. The background in computer science and biomedical. Her current role varies these interdisciplinary studies by exploring the application of computation and machine learning in their development. Coming to LLNL, Samantha has pursued several new sub-projects and began volunteering for Girls Who Code. So I'll hand it over to Jen and start.
Yeah, so hi, thanks for attending our panel. So we originally had a different moderator, and so forgive me if my moderating on short notice has some itches. But I am pleased to introduce our panel of early career staff here at the lab. And then so if you noticed from some of the short introduction, all have some involvement in mentorship and outreach programs covering from high school to graduate school, focused on teaching students more about science and technology. So we're going to talk a bit about those programs, but also because this is a Women in Data Science event, about being an early career person and an early career woman in a technical field. So and then for the format of this discussion, I'm going to ask the panelists some guided discussion questions so we can hear more about these programs, but then we're going to open the floor to everyone for a Q&A. So please think about any questions that you'd like to ask panelists. So I think to get started, we're going to talk about the career paths of each person on this panel a little bit. So I guess we could get started talking a little bit about how you came to LLNL and why you chose this position for your career.
Thank you. So I can go back and get started. Hi, everybody on page. Okay. And then sorry, apologies for the product. Like looking directly at you. I had an untraditional pathway in software development. I actually started my undergraduate career as a business student, and throughout my time as a business student, I was not doing too well in school, and I was feeling fulfilled in the work that I was doing, and I was actually confiding in a friend who was a computer science student, and he showed me the first Hello World program. Most people that are familiar with tech, right? You've read that program. And I remember looking at it and thinking, wow, the screen is so cool and all the text is so colorful. I want to do that. And so the next day I actually went to the dean of the computer science department at Chico State and decided to switch my major. There was a lot of banter of, are you sure? You haven't done you don't have any background in tech. Are you sure this is the pathway you want to go?
And I said yes. So I kind of went headfirst at the classes and transitioned into tech that way. Throughout my time at Chico City, I would say that I struggled to find a community. Became the co-founder of the ACMW chapter. Through that and through my technical advisor for that club, he actually worked in the HPC high performance computing area for the summer internship program at LLNL. And he constantly talked about it. So I feel like I have so much background on specifically that program and what it was like to be an intern at LLNL. So I actually was able to secure an internship, and I took a co-op internship. So I actually took 6 months off of school and worked full time as a software developer for 6 months at LLNL. And although I had a background a little bit on what the lab did, I didn't really recognize the breadth of knowledge that you can kind of acquire through your role just by all the cross-functional collaboration that you do and like seeing all the different flavors of STEM, right? As I mentioned, I was part of recruitment, or as what introduction mentioned, and people always come up to me and say, well, what does the lab do? We do everything, right? And that's something that I recognized early on in my internship and immediately was ready to move into my full-time role just because of the opportunity that exists to have so much exposure to areas. Yeah. All right. I guess I can go next. So hi, I'm Emilia. So my interest, but to go back to it to in more detail, I was a student studying biomedical engineering, and it's a very broad field. You can go into bioelectricity or biomechanics or tissue engineering or medical devices and imaging systems. And as I was going through the intro of every subfield, I didn't really feel like there was a great fit in any particular direction. And then, so I was really seeking out mentors and research projects with different professors and trying different things out to find my thing. And there was a new professor, Dr. Jocelyn Dunn, who was joining when I was a junior. So I reached out to her, and she was looking into wearable devices, like smartwatches, and then trying to predict health outcomes ahead of time, mostly stuff like diabetes and stuff related to metabolic syndrome. But she did have an interesting project involving flu. And I don't know why that caught my attention. I just never thought that you could predict the flu ahead of time and apply perhaps like a prophylactic and quarantine yourself. This was all pre-COVID as well. So I got really into the project. I felt like it was so interesting that I would randomly work on it until 4 a.m. On accident a lot. So it felt like very natural, and I enjoyed learning everything as I went through. And then I realized that data science was what I was more interested in than biomedical engineering. But the degree was very flexible. And so as a student, I applied to data science internships. And then I eventually got one at the lab here. And I worked on a deep learning and bioinformatics project. And my mentor was really great. That was also during the COVID pandemic. And then once that internship wrapped up, I finished the flu project. I published a paper on it. And so I had like a concrete deliverable on that in a way. And I think that really helped with securing a job here after the internship. And it's also virus related. This guide, it kind of really grew under the COVID pandemic because that was the virus that we were trying to create antibodies for rapidly as the virus is mutating. It still is. So that's how I ended up here. And then since then, I've had an intern myself. And I will have another one.
Hi, I'm Sam. My undergraduate degree was in biological sciences, and after graduating, I took some time off because I wanted to gain industry experience. I wanted to travel. And during that time, I think I realized that with an undergrad in bio, postgraduate education was almost necessary. And so at that time, I was deciding between either pursuing a PhD or med school. Decided that I didn't think I had enough time to do either, but I did have some experience with programming. I was exposed to programming in my undergrad and thought maybe I could try pursuing a postgraduate degree in computer science. So I didn't really have a plan B for that. It was very sink or swim. Thankfully, I was admitted to the master's program at Chico State, where I met Paige, and I ended up falling in love with computer science, especially the theory behind it. And in my last semester at Chico State, the same professor that reached out to Paige about an opportunity at LLNL reached out to me, and that was how I ended up working on Guide with Emilia. So, bit of a small world, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks. Those are all great stories. I love all of the change and the fact that these are sort of nonlinear. You set your sights on one thing, you go somewhere else. But I know with that, there's also an even higher incidence sometimes of the thing I think a lot of this is imposter syndrome. So have you ever felt any of that as you navigate through your path?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons too. I had mentioned that I was struggling in my communities, and I felt like I had to play a lot of catch up because I was transitioning into a technical role so much later than so many of my peers. And I felt like the way to combat that was through clubs and through connecting with other women, and finding that support system to be able to talk to them about the technical things that I was doing and learn more about what they were doing and what they were interested in. And kind of putting myself out there to learn just more about technical fields, right? Because it's so broad. There's so many different areas that you could take, like a computer science degree. And I think going through and finding my community and then, reflecting on my accomplishments and being proud of them and being sure of the things that I've accomplished really helped combat imposter syndrome. And it still sneaks up every once in a while. But I just take a deep breath and I remind myself that I'm here for a reason and I worked really hard to be here. And everybody around you wants you to succeed. Nobody wants you to fail. So I think just reminding yourself that and being sure in yourself is really helpful in finding your community.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I really struggled with imposter syndrome when I was trying to break into data science. Because I felt like I didn't know everything I needed to know. And I felt like I had to really prove myself in order to get that first opportunity to get paid to do it. And it was really hard getting that first, gig. But once you build more data about yourself and you see what you're able to accomplish over time, and that kind of helps get rid of that. I still have it every now and then, but that's more of a mood thing than a chronic issue of people. But I think just having more experience kind of helps get rid of it over time. But everyone goes through it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I guess for me, in high school, I was planning to pursue law, and then I decided that's not a STEM degree, so maybe it's really not worth pursuing. Then I pursued biology. That wasn't good enough. It was a soft science. I ended up pursuing computer science. Finally, I would reach a goal that wasn't attainable and good enough. Then I ended up interning at a hardware company, and I decided, no, it's not good enough. I needed to major in electrical engineering. So I guess this is all to say, maybe if you have those feelings of imposter syndrome, it is good enough. And for me, it's never really gone away, but it's kind of realizing those feelings are a bit irrational, and the grass is always greener on the other side. I'm sure once I got into electrical engineering, it would be something beyond that. But like, why am I not majoring in physics? And so on. So
Yeah, that definitely resonates. I always find that, if I'm feeling, unsure about something, it usually means I'm learning something. So it's really cool to hear that you all have overcome that and gone on to, find your positions. So for our careers, do you have any advice that you'd want to give to people who are looking to enter the top of the career in data science fields?
I would say don't be afraid to take risks and put yourself into a domain you aren't familiar with, right? I'm not a data scientist, but I'm here participating in the data bot. I'm participating in WiDS, constantly trying to learn these things. And I think from 3 and really 4 of our backgrounds, we all kind of had quote unquote traditional path into the careers that we're in now. And that's because we were willing to kind of put ourselves out there and take that risk enough, right? And a lot of times those things pay off. I think it's really important to have experience in a data science project with real world data and do it from start to finish. And then when you display that to someone, it's really hard for them to argue that you're not qualified or that you don't know what you're doing. And having the ability to deeply defend your work and your thought process really helps securing that next role or that it's the main want to do.
yeah, and things like adaptability, touching on what Paige was saying, those make a really good software engineer. Those types of like the ability to be able to adapt to your situations. So I guess for those who are, aspiring to enter into tech, maybe you are, on the fence, or you have imposter syndrome and you are worried that, it may not be the right fit for you. I would say definitely try, and know that if it is difficult at first, what I think makes a good software engineer, a good developer, is a person that it's not someone that never fails, but who fails and then continues to learn and try until they become successful.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to talk about some of the programs that we have at the lab that do outreach and mentorship. So we're going to start with talking about Girls Who Code. And so if Sam could give us just a little bit of background on what Girls Who Code is, and also talk about a little bit about why it's so important.
Yeah, so has anyone here heard of Girls Who Code? Show of hands. Okay. Yeah. So quite a few of you. So for those of you who don't know what Girls Who Code is, it's a way to expose girls who are typically it's elementary, middle, or high school to coding early on, and to give them a space, I guess, allows them to do so in a comfortable way at their pace. I just started facilitating with Girls Who Code this past October, and it's been an amazing experience so far. I really can't speak, to how valuable such a program is. I wish that it existed at the time I was in, elementary, middle, or high school. And I think, the fact that so many of us had these nonlinear paths and a lot of time and worry was spent on whether or not we were good enough to pursue software because we didn't have, exposure to it early on, that we were entering the game late. Those could have been, I think, mitigated somewhat if we had, a program like Girls Who Code available to us. So, it's been an awesome experience so far. I don't know if you wanted to talk more about it, Paige.
Yeah, and I will take what Sam said and add on to it too. It's not just about exposing one, but just about exposing historically underrepresented groups in tech and in STEM to the possibilities of careers in technology. And like Sam said, it's such an incredible experience to go into where I'm working with students, to see how excited they get just about the, changing the color on their web page. We did an HTML CSS lab, and they all do their sort of fan pages, which and really just about providing the opportunity, Sam said, that we didn't necessarily have, and kind of helping their career trajectory align earlier, right? So that they don't have to go through some of the things that we did. Yeah, it's a way to give back to the community and to the people around you.
I guess I also do a little Girl Scout code in the same. We're in the state and I are in the same classroom, but it's always so cool to see. I mean, not just the Taylor Swift fan pages, but also how quickly they're able to get started. It's just like they can take little bits of information and it's you just make a short like 10-line HTML web page and it's a whole fan page. Or like little games to ask each other questions. So it's also really cool because it's like you don't need to do that much to get started. Like you can do little things on baby steps. But so we also had another one more question about Girl Scout code. Is if Sam, you could speak a little bit to the experience needed, or Paige, what sort of preparation do you keep to go into Girl Scout code?
Yeah, you need like 2 masters, 3 PhDs. Anyone can, facilitate for Girl Scout code. So if it's something that, you're interested in, but maybe you feel your technical background is a little weak, absolutely pursue it because it's such a rewarding experience. And who knows, maybe as you facilitate more, you'll pick up more on it and start to want to program yourself. So
yeah, a lot of the curriculum to Girl Scout code is actually provided by the nonprofit organization. So yeah, like Sam said, very little experience needed. They do a great job of kind of touching on all of stuff that we in the IT world, right? So we throughout the year try to work on machine learning, cybersecurity, etc. Go through all of these lessons that are provided by Girl Scout codes. They've been around for, I think they just had their 10-year anniversary. It's lots of experience. They provide the facilitators the necessary materials to be successful.
They really have a great amount of information. It's even educational for us to, they use things like Google AI to, train machine learning models. So it's a really, really good experience. So there's another program we wanted to talk about for high schoolers is the Science Accelerating Girls Engagement, which Paige, you could tell us a little bit more about what that is.
That's an incredible program, and I absolutely wish that I could have participated in it when I was a high school student. But we bring 50 to 60 high school girls on site, and they actually quote unquote learn a day of the life of, and then fill in the blanks. They had a day in the life of a software developer, a day in the life of a physicist. And the students actually got to tour facilities and work on a project with all of those different domains and learn kind of what the day-to-day is to these roles, right? The goal of exposing students to the possibilities of work at a national lab. And I think one of the things that can be difficult is since our technical and scientific aptitude is so vast and broad, it can be kind of hard to articulate to others what a national laboratory does. And I think especially in the technical field, a lot of times we talk to students, right? They want to work at Amazon, Google, Apple, etc. And they have no idea or no background on what a national lab is, even with the students that we work with here in Livermore. So I think having programs like that creates those organizational pipelines that are really required for talent acquisition, to really open that door to a lot of young women that are looking at STEM and have some sort of interest in it, but just don't really know what they want their career trajectory to look like as they pursue their degree. So it's a really incredible program. And if you're interested in learning more about the two things we're talking about, please come talk to me. If you want to participate, volunteer, there's so many opportunities that allowed to do so.
Well, yeah, one question to follow up on that is, what sort of preparation or requirement is there needed for the volunteers?
It can be as little or as much as you want it to be. Some of the volunteers are essentially chaperones, right? So you walk and stay with your particular students throughout the entire day. Some people facilitate labs that the students do. It kind of just depends on the role that you sign up for. But the staff, the academic engagement office here at LLNL definitely provides you the necessary materials and time, et cetera, to prepare for whatever role you're volunteering in.
Next. So have you felt like an impact on yourself, either as a volunteer or as a participant in these programs?
Yes. Yeah, yes to both. So I think as a volunteer, the greatest impact that I feel that it's had on me is I feel like I have the opportunity to get out to the community around me. And that provides a lot of value. And I've also had the opportunity to learn from students. I think one of the things that we talked about being Girls Who Code facilitators is it is so surprising how adaptable these younger students are and how quickly they learn, and the ideas that they have and the questions that they ask kind of inspired me in my own work, right? So I think providing that value has really impacted me. It motivates me throughout my career. There will be times, where my technical backlog is very long and I feel a little stressed out, but then I get that hour to work with my students and I feel refreshed, revitalized when I come back, and I'm ready to go headfirst into my, day-to-day responsibilities. That's it. Emilia,
Has it worked with Sage or Girls? It's hard
for me to say anything on that, but I do wish that as a kid or high schooler had something like that, because I didn't have experience coding until college, and then by then it felt like a little overwhelming because a lot of people already were very much ahead. I'm sure it's a pretty program fits students.
Not gonna Thanks. Well, now questions for Emilia, as we have other programs. We have other programs too, more geared at the undergraduate and graduate level. The Data Science Summer Institute. I got that acronym right. Yes. So, could you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. So for 50% of the internship, you have an individual project and a mentor that's linked to that project, and it's kind of just you working on it. And then for the other 50% of the internship, you're in the Data Science Summer Institute, and you're in classes, learning things with the other interns, or if you're working on a common challenge problem that every intern has, then you're in broken down into groups. I think you get like one or two of those. And then at the end, you present your individual project in like a poster session to the whole group of interns. So it's a nice mix of individual projects, group projects, and then classroom like learning. So you get exposed to a lot of different areas of data science, and then you dive deep to your particular technical field. So it's a really great balance of everything. Student. And then, so I was both an intern in 2020, and then I had my own intern in 2022. So that was interesting being on both sides of that pretty quickly. And it's a very different experience on, the other side. Because as the intern, you feel like you're in total control, or you're trying to be, that it's all riding on you. But if you're the mentor, you still have those residual feelings, but your job is to kind of be more hands-off and teach your intern, especially if that's their first internship. They don't know certain programs or certain things they get, but they might be doing after this time. So, and then sometimes I remember telling my intern, like, I know the answer, but I'll have to let you struggle with it on your own. Or I need you to go and find the information on your own first. The whole point of managing people is to have more work done, than you can do as an individual, right? So you kind of have to keep that in mind as a mentor, that you still want them to have a genuine work kind of experience where they would have a manager expecting things out of them. So it's a gentle balance of teaching and trying to make sure that they know what they're doing and that they're getting ahead, and then also being a boss in some way, and having demands and so it was it was a learning experience for me as well. And that's what the DSSI experience is like, both as an intern and as a mentor.
Yeah, that's a very quick turnaround on the transition between mentoring and being a mentor. But it sounds like you navigated the challenges. You've been navigating the challenges between those. Are you feeling pretty good about having another one?
Yeah, I think so. This new intern will have a different set of skills and experience. It won't be his first internship, and then he's a computer science student, whereas the last one was a stats student. So there will be different things I will have to teach, and then different things that I can be more hands off on. So it'll still be a learning experience for me as well. And I still feel imposter syndrome over that, but we'll work through it. I hope it'll be good.
Yeah, it sounds like you put a lot of thought to it. So have you, are you drawing from other mentors that you've had, or where have you found mentors in your career?
So really early, when I was trying to break into data science, I think my mentors were absolutely critical. The professor I worked under for the project, I think she kind of changed my life in a way, like she changed my career trajectory. She restored my confidence in my STEM abilities in general. And then, she was absolutely critical in my life in general, for my whole career. And then later, as I was getting internships and jobs, whoever was my manager was my de facto mentor. And I feel like I've had pretty good managers throughout my career. And then I still keep in touch with my former mentors or managers, and they still, root for me. And I think that's really important, to keep in touch with people, and you never know when they're gonna help you later on as well, or when you help them. So that's where the mentors really help.
I guess. Yeah. So I guess to open up to our panelists in general talking about mentorship, is there anything that your mentors have done, or that you do as a mentor, to help build confidence and resiliency in your mentees, your students?
I think what Emilia was touching on, and the way that when I started my internship, my mentor, tell her every day changed my life. It's been really fun to watch her career grow up as well. She's application program a lot, but having somebody to kind of have those more candid conversations with about how you're feeling, right? Because when you're trying to transition into a full-time role and secure a job, sometimes I think you feel like you have to say yes to whatever opportunity you're given. So being able to talk with her through what I really wanted to do and what I wanted my focus to be really changed my career trajectory, because I started in data analytics here at the lab, and then I switched into full software roles. It's really where I wanted to be. And then, like Emilia said, her not always giving me the answer when I asked a question, right? And allowing me the time to explore and research and find solutions on my own was so instrumental in me having confidence in myself, kind of moving between these different paths, like and being confident that even though I don't know the answer right now, that's okay. I can find that solution down within a given time frame. Allowing your mentee to struggle just a little bit is going to help them in the long run, right? Yeah. Just to add on that, I think being really honest with your mentee or mentor, it's critical. If tell them what you're struggling with, or you can tell your mentee what their advantages are, disadvantages, what they need to work on, and what they are pretty solid on. I think they take that to heart, and then they improve. The intern that I had, when I told him that he needed to kind of struggle a little bit more on his own, he started writing like blog posts looking for answers on not Stack Overflow, but something stats related. And I was really impressed by that because someone else pointed it out to me. So it was fun to watch that.
Yeah, I haven't had a mentee, although I will this summer, and I haven't had like a formal mentor. But I would say that if you have the opportunity to find a mentor, have one to talk to, really, it would be great to take advantage of that, just because it will save you a lot of time having to rediscover things that have already been discovered, and you can stand on the shoulders of giants, and you also in your mentor find an advocate for you, right? When you build that relationship with them, and that's just going to become, I think, really important for you in your career. So definitely if you're at the lab now, or if you're about to pursue, a full-time job, something to think about, namely in tech too.
So yeah, it's not good. A pieces of advice. So I think thinking about sort of like the wider workplace and being a woman in a technical field, how do you think diversity and inclusion of women, other underrepresented groups impacts innovation in your field or in the tech industry?
I mean, that directly impacts it, right? When you have a group of people sit together that come from very different backgrounds, and that have had different walks of life and different experiences, you're able to build better products, right? I mean, at the core, that's something we talk about often, and it's directly impacts development decisions and the things that you're doing. And it's so important, right, to give everybody a seat at the table and allow people the opportunity to contribute to these projects, make a greater impact with the work they could do. You don't want to get tunnel vision because you're sitting with like-minded people that have had the exact same experience as you. You want to open that door and allow others to contribute to that project and to that head forward. It can kind of hinder your ability to explore that. Don't get everybody a seat at the table.
Yeah, I guess to add on to that, I absolutely think that two heads are better than one, so on. But there are quantifiable impacts of having a diverse workforce. I think there was a study done by two business professors, one from Columbia University and the other from University of Maryland, that studied the impact of female representation in management leads at top 1,000 firms in the country, and found that a greater proportion of female representation, so greater gender diversity at those management leads, resulted in an increase of $42 million revenue for those firms. So it is, there is, it's financially advantageous to have, a diverse workforce, both racially and gender-wise. So, it can be fun, but I guess it's all things to say.
As data scientists, we like that.
Yeah. I love citations. So yeah, that's great. So, thinking about what a good, workplace culture to support women to build an inclusive culture, what does that look like and how do you support that?
That was like this. Being here, showing up, supporting each other, offering opportunity to network with other women. And I think one of the things that I talk about a lot with National Labs, sometimes you can kind of be siloed into your role because it is so vast in the projects that we do. And the technical knowledge is vastly different amongst each other. But I think having an opportunity for us to collectively get together and work on problems like this and network with each other promotes an inclusive workplace culture, allows the opportunity for people to learn more about, what we're all doing, what we're contributing. And I think that that's really important. It adds value. Yeah. For me, having other women on the team has really helped. They end up being my go-to people for any questions. Yeah, I'd be lost without. So very grateful.
Yeah, I think it's making a concerted effort to seek those types of people out, like how they do want to see that kind of diversity reflected in your team, that it's, consciously advocating for and going out of your way to try to, onboard them.
And the last thing I would say too, just as an individual, just trying to reach out to the other women in my group and kind of network with them and try to catch coffee every once in a while. We just talk about what we're doing, just making sure to show up for each other.
Yeah, I think those open lines of communication I found to be really essential and sort of, I guess, promoting a culture where, you have multiple people to talk to at different levels too is really great. You can't pass problems up the chain if no one ever hears about them. So hopefully, maybe if, talking to a student or if you talk to someone more senior, and you talk to someone, get a better workplace culture going. So I think with that, we'll open up the floor to any attendees who have questions.
Sure, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Can you recall the time where you were really excited to apply some really sexy, advanced, machine learning or really complicated technology or strategy to something, but it turned out a simpler solution was actually what the project needed?
It's a good question. I feel like being somebody that's passionate about tech, you kind of encounter that situation quite often, and you get, especially when you start communicating with your peers, and specifically in my office, a lot of times what will happen is we have this common area. We all kind of group together. Somebody has this challenge, and it may not be machine learning focused because that's not necessarily the work that we do, but we start to talk about it, and then things kind of escalate on what the solution would be, and we always lead towards the fanciest thing, and then that person goes back and sits back down at their computer, and they're like, "Well, I had to change 2 lines of code, and I just, this is semicolon or something," right? And I think that those situations happen a lot when you're in a passionate area, or when you work in an environment where people have the same passion as you. But I don't think it's something to be disappointed about. I would rather have that than to come to my group and be like, "Oh, I don't know." So, yeah.
When I first started at Guide, I was kind of overwhelmed with the type of data I was working with, and I never worked with antibody sequences, and so I
just kind of applied the most simple. I did like a one hot and swimming and then linear regression just to play around with it. And it ended up being useful, which really surprised me. So I have the tendency to go try the simple thing and not. That's great advice. Start off small.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to not want the code. So I feel, it's fun. So you tend to like over engineer a lot of things.
Yes.
But yeah, and then you realize, after a day at work on it, like, wow, this could have been condensed immensely. But yeah, like Paige said, I would rather that than, the opposite. So
I think it comes with experience too, learning how to read that.
yeah, I agree.
Because if I go to talk to a developer that, has been working in my area of expertise for 10 years, they kind of sit me down and they say, well, did you think about this? Like, well, it's not just fun to think about that. They say, well, it'll be more advantageous for your time if you think about it this way.
Yep. Thanks. So I came through more like a cybersecurity thing. So I was like, how can I do some crossover? And I'm glad to hear about it through the panel speakers and that and everything. But I haven't done any of science. And I don't have a very strong coding background. Currently, I'm actually an intern. So I want to build up some of that coding skills. But I guess what would you kind of recommend to be beneficial time-wise to when you don't have that computer science background or software engineering, but you're trying to kind of be useful and solve these kind of different method of problems from whatever angles efficient.
Specifically within your internship or just kind of broad?
Just kind of general, but like maybe just with the idea of not having that strong foundational program that is computer science would emphasize a lot more software development.
I personally think a great way to kind of open that door for yourself is to start working on various different projects. What I recommend to a lot of people is there's tons of YouTube tutorials that do kind of every field, right? A project in every field in the IT column. So kind of going through, watching some of those, seeing what interests you, and trying a project kind of in that domain yourself, and utilizing your online community in your network and coming to events like this, right? And utilizing your network lab is a good place to start, kind of give you that foundation. Projects, definitely projects. Yeah. YouTube is a great one. And then I started using ChatGPT, and that has been life changing. Yeah. Even like the free version everyone uses, it's still amazing. So it'll just prick out all the code for you. It's life changing.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
So definitely make use of like free online resources, and I guess like just don't be afraid to break things. You're doing things right if you're breaking.
Yes. And you learn more when you break things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I guess I ended up being a moderator, some panelists, but I was a geologist who like learned coding, so I relate to this, moving into more computer science background. And I think these are all great pieces of advice, but also really looking to colleagues when I'm looking at new projects. So, I'm like, oh, with this project, I'm going to work with this person who has this really awesome skill set. And then, so like pick their brain. And this is the way that I've learned a lot of things like, like version control or, because there are great online resources, but sometimes, at least for me, it's very easy to get confused and do things that are, maybe not ideal or maybe not considered like professional standard. Having someone who knows a little bit more, even just to say, don't put that in my code repo. So, I think it's really great to find colleagues who can work with you and have the skills important works, especially. Yeah.
Yep.
So I just got accepted for an internship at another lab, and I'm just wondering, is there like something that you would recommend for an intern to prepare for? Like, what is the best way to prepare?
And I think a good way to prepare yourself is one of the things I kind of initiated that communication. First, I do stand with the mentor and just blatantly ask them if you're given that opportunity, or if you're, that you're going to be working in the area, kind of just mentally, being able to prepare yourself for what kind of work you're going to be transitioning to. I think it's really helpful. I personally, going into my internship, didn't prepare. I mean, I asked, and she told me, and then I kind of just showed up. And it was fine, right? Like, you are given time to learn work that you're doing. But I think initiating that conversation is helpful.
Yeah, if they sent you like a project description, and it's in a domain that you don't know everything about, like just getting some background on the domain knowledge ahead of time might be good. But yeah, I wouldn't stress out about like learning everything and having code before you can start. There's no need for that. They're going to expect you to learn for like the first 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on. So, but congrats. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So what is it? If we still have a question, just yeah. So we've talked about interns a lot, but I'm kind of in a position where I started work right out of my graduate school, and it was in a field I hadn't really worked on before. And I'm learning a lot of skills in R, a little bit in Python, but I'm the only one who's working in R or Python. And it's kind of like, I don't really have a community to build with. And so now I'm kind of thinking, so I should probably move somewhere, but I don't know where I fit in terms of like, would it be better for me to do an internship again, even though I've been working for a couple of years now as a data scientist? Or should I try to apply to places, even though I don't really know, I'm not experienced working with their kind of data, or I don't know what data science means to everyone else. This is what I've been doing. It's kind of broad to me still. So I guess what's your take on, like, if you've already been working somewhere, but maybe you're trying to enter into another place, where would you kind of, I need to juggle my, like insecurities. Like, well, I'm not good enough to just get a staff position somewhere, but I probably am. I just don't know the field. So that wasn't so much of a question.
I really relate to this because because my background is not in data science, and I work with a lot of people who are chemists, not data scientists. So, we have a very small team of people who do. I've also worked hard on. So I guess I haven't looked so much at transitioning, but one thing having a small team is just throwing a wider net to find places to make connections with people who are doing similar things to their work. Because it sounds like you have a pretty small team of maybe just you. That's rough. Yeah, but I think it's hard without that feedback of having a colleague that works with you on that to say like, how am I doing? So I think that's one of those things that is really, really tough, but also just letting going out there and applying and just seeing and really it's kind of just throwing stuff at the long seeing sticks. Because I think for me, how I ended up in this position was one of those things where I'd applied to a bunch of different things. I had no idea it would work the field that I do work in. And you being open to a lot of different possibilities. So if you're looking for a new job, even if and this is one of those things I think I've seen cited online basically is like a lot of times women will tend to look at requirements and say, I don't exactly fit that. And then instead of men saying, well, I fit 60% of that. Or, so it's, and sometimes you don't know what fits in your background that someone's looking for. So, it's good to just try it out over times. Right? Yeah.
So like in your experience joining the Livermore lab, I know some people who work here too, and they branch across different projects and they know about the science here and there. Is that kind of okay? Like maybe I don't know the science, but I can work out data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All the time I work with people that absolutely different areas of expertise. And I mean, that's one of the great things about working at a national lab is I don't have a background in biology, but it's hard biology or chemistry, right? It's building software for people who are working on projects to have that. I hope it's I think that's okay, and that's expected. You help each other learn.
Thank you.
Yeah, as long as you demonstrate your ability to think critically and to actually get something done that's challenging, I think that's the most important thing. I wouldn't worry about having niche experience or you gotta just like sell it, you know. That's yeah.
Yeah, I think so I'm checking out the WebEx chat. And I think this was addressed for you as correlation one is starting a career advancement great boot camp that might be worth checking out. So it's in the WebEx chat, or I can show you after we're done. But we also had one question from online. And I don't know if I can read it, or Alexander, if you want to unmute and ask.
Yeah, I can ask. Thank you so much for an awesome panel. So I interned actually last summer at Livermore. I had a great experience, and I'm hopefully coming back to do DSSI this summer. Really excited about that. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in computer engineering. So I had two kind of specific questions. One is that I'd like to do a full-time job after my PhD, but it seems like Livermore particularly likes people who do postdocs at the lab and then kind of convert. I'm a little bit unsure about that. I was wondering if you guys could speak to that and how likely it might be to get something full-time. And then also, like, I had never worked in a matrix organization before last summer, and I found it a little bit hard to like find my voice and kind of stay confident in my skills in that environment. I'm wondering if you could speak to that as well. Thank you.
So in regards to the matrix, I can go past yeah. But I think one of it really just goes back to being like confident in your abilities and recognizing, like Emilia was saying earlier, that it's okay to not have like niche knowledge about these other areas. Like when you're matrix out into a project, you don't really have any background on that project. That's okay. And I think that that's expected throughout the organization, right? You just have to demonstrate, you're saying, your ability to critically think and get things done. The rest of that to follow. As far as this, I guess it depends what kind of position you're looking for. I can't speak to like staff scientist positions, but if you're looking to be a data scientist, I don't think you need to have a postdoc or go through that experience. Because I went right after my master's, and I know that people apply given after their bachelor's. So for data science, it's more project dependent on what kind of education or background you need. It's not as rigid. For staff scientist positions, I'm not sure. If I can add to that, it's definitely been done before, especially if you've had internships or relationship, collaboration with the university. It's definitely not impossible. It is a little bit more difficult as science jobs are restricted here, but you definitely have upper hand being that you are for intern. So speak to whoever your mentor was, and whoever your collaborators are at the lab. Try to have that conversation early, so before you graduate.
Last question.
Yes. Thank you for setting this up. Are there opportunities for people who are already in the lab, say different divisions? For example, BBTD who want to move into geoscience, machine learning. Are there opportunities for people to actually hone in their biological scientist skills and use machine learning? I don't know if you have to like get someone who's already in data science to join the team, or if you have, I guess, interest to go into that field. Are there opportunities for people who are already there to like, join data science?
That can happen all the time, doesn't it? Especially for biology, we like poached a few data scientists and software developers from outside of our group. That happens quite a lot. Emilia can speak more on that, but
yeah, I would try to network with project leads of projects you're interested in, and then see what their interest is, and yeah, if the background aligns, it's definitely not impossible.
I know, Cynthia Gonzalez. She had like, she worked at the lab, but her background wasn't in data science, and I think she ended up pursuing like a postgraduate degree in data science, and then pivoted towards that career internally from within the lab. So, I could give you her email if you wanted to reach out to her and have a chat, because I think she would be a great person for you to talk to me about that.
Oh yeah, she's also the current assistant director of the Data Science Institute now. So she's like the best person to ask to in terms of career trajectories and kind of starting from scratch. Use and you're a great motivator. Yeah.
I'll say a follow-up question would be, do you think a degree will be the best way to go, or a certificate courses like good options?
Oh, that's a thing for me. Honest, I don't think I could speak to that. I'm not sure. I mean, if you have experience, especially at the lab, towards it anyways, I don't think that would be necessary. But I'm not certain.
You might need to talk to the specific project needs about what kind of gaps in knowledge or gaps in skills you have, and a full degree might not be necessary. And so, but it is paid for.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.